level of trade, which has been designated $1 billion industry, being multiplied by 10 over the next 10 to 15 years. That's by Forbes and Goldman Sachs. So my experience with Warner Chappell Music, Warner Brother Records Publishing over the last, I would say from 2008, that's been about 11 years, so we're going to talk about that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it's going to be pretty dope. Hopefully, looking good so far.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So we got Speech from Arrested Development.
That's right.
We got Jay Commander.
Facts.
We got some martial arts.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Shout out to a sensei, Lee, who is the creator and founder of the Creative Concepts Martial School, as well as stand-up fighter martial arts equipment.
Okay.
A lot of people may not know about this guy. He's in Simpsonville, South Carolina. My son, I'm blessed to have found him, and now my son is one of his students,
That's
which
awesome.
is dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's dope because one, he gets to see a reflection of himself, dealing with his self-esteem. He stays inspired. He also gets time to talk to somebody about how to be an entrepreneur and make your own way in this world. Yeah, make your own product, but more important, make your own way. You know, you have innovation, a gift from the Most High. You got an 11th Amendment. We call it the constitutional clause in the U.S. Constitution. As a creator and inventor, you have a right to make as well as generate revenue or commerce and trade off what you make. And so that's something he gets to learn from a child all the way up. You know, similar, you know, as I was taught by my father. I was fortunate enough to see him work in his innovation and later learn how he was applying his trade, which was 50 years. He was directly under Curtis Mayfield since he was 19 years old till he recently transitioned, and he was with Warner Brother Records, as well as starting their own record company and distribution as well. So that awesome. I learned that. It was a blessing.
And that's a part of your book as well.
Yeah, it's two books. One is the stand. Well, the first book we did in Chicago for people in the trade who we circulated it was called Handle Your Business. It was a niche market approach based on the neo soul and spoken word arenas at that time. So we was giving people a blueprint of how we went from the underground, literally, and above ground with from Def Poetry Jam to dealing with they were called legends and icons in Chicago for the reggae scene. I worked their label for about 7 to 8 years as well, side by side with the poetry scene. Okay. So we were able to evolve, because underground is a season. So you, in any type of tactical strategy, it's a season. At some point, you have to come above ground. So we were fortunate and blessed enough to be able to come above ground, and it led to some great things.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Facts.
So you basically break down that history of how that.
In the first book, and then the first book, of course, it was only the first 5 or so years, because that's the period that we were dealing with. Okay. When you go into Stay in the Groove, a niche music, Stay in the Groove, one person rule for success. We're talking about now an industry principle that I'll consider like an elder. She told me early in my career that when you're in the music industry, the higher up you go, you're one person from everything you want to do and accomplish in the music industry, because the circles are small, you know. So when she dropped that jewel on me, it affirmed not only what was taking place then, but even to this day. We're talking maybe a decade, 2 decades later, it still proves to be true. Every move you get ready to make, no matter what that vision is you're inspired with in the music industry, if you're serious, you're one person from everywhere you want to go.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I outline that history. I give them 2 decades or so of real examples, success stories, and how it went down. And I give them a little cautionary war tales too in the back of the book. You know, something to look out for.
And most of that took place in Chicago, you said, right?
Yeah, Chicago, but we was working the entire country, which is what people had to understand. Like we were based in Chicago. Okay. All right. Which is a music industry city. It's #1 in the market. It had radio. It was always the largest black marketing for music. And they have the largest concentration of successful blacks. It's based in Chicago. Okay. So a lot of people may not know that. And so we were #1 like in album purchasing. You know, I have a book called Chicago Soul by Robert Pruder, where he broke down the entire map and the demographic of soul consumers and soul music consumers. So this is something that, you know, we break down in the book. We give people clarity, like, you know, we base this on real, we went to the Small Business Administration when we first started, working with the retired executives and helping to outline a 50-plus business plan 50 plus page business plan, things like that. So we take them step by step, you know, and help them see that there's, you know, the underground, or if you will, some people call it the conscious or edutainment movement, whatever. But we knew it was based on some hard numbers, real facts. That from a trade perspective, we always approached our spoken word scene that way, and developed it that way.
Okay.
So again, these examples are in that book. All day.
So now you leave from Chicago. Now you're in Spartanburg and doing that same
14 years, and it was interesting coming here on the way here to this event tonight. Was coming full circle because it was coming to mind, like, you know, we spent 3 years in Charleston, right? And when we were there, this was at the peak of Def Poetry Jam. So I come to Charleston, and being at that time I had become the official Def Poetry Jam radio, and I was handling all of the commerce for so many artists and the poetry, and they were filtering it through what we had, like a super website at that time built by the Digital Media Center of the Illinois Institute of Technology. So because of that, the executive producer, one of them, Bruce George, he's the Peabody Award winning one for the show as well as the Broadway piece they did. So he, and that's in the book. So I put the letters in there in the book so people could see that connection when he was like, yo, you be that official multimedia technology end of Def Poetry Jam. So it's things like that that's in the book, right? So I revealed for the first time just a lot of nuts and bolts of what it took to maintain that. So
I saw the actual the letters.
And maybe that's why you was bugging me like that. Like, no, man.
The actual emails.
I had to put that in there because that and the contracts, and I show people, for example, coming into Charleston, they had a lady by the name, she was an investor from Wall Street called Judith Adu, and she had been on Oprah Winfrey. She bought a radio station called WPAL, and that was I think it was 103.3 FM or something like that, or 106.3 I believe it was, and she made it a 24-hour neo soul formatted radio station. So coming into Charleston, that was one of the bridges. You know, that I came in on. In part, it was easy because one, you know, we already had terrestrial radio. I've been in Chicago on the radio for these 5 or 6 years. I've been doing digital satellite radio with Noah Samarda out of Africa. This is the granddaddy to XM satellite radio. So he owned most of the shares of XM, and then he started digital satellite radio. So that was something that we put in the book that people may not have known about, because if you wasn't in Chi-Town and behind the scenes, you wouldn't have known about that, right? So knowing that technology came out of Africa, which is big, people may not have known that, you know? So that was what led to the Def Poetry Jam thing, because we had 4 continents, 5.5 billion people that he was targeting. He wanted edutainment, neo-soul. He wanted connection between the youth movements and entertainment in the U.S. and how it connected to the ones we were reporting about and revealing from Zimbabwe and other countries in Africa. So he wanted those countries to be exposed to that kind of information. So that's real. I'm just saying that that's what's in the book. Like, so when Bruce George heard that, when they came to Chicago, and in that 15 seconds, as we call it, elevator pitch, it was done right there. We said, we'll bring you into these 4 continents, and you all bring us into the U.S. And so people don't know that's how that whole bridge was even established. And that's in the book. So we showing people how this principle works out in real life.
And then you took that concept and put it on 45 and made it universal. The 45 with the different performers on it. And you have the album.
Oh, you just see, but that's like years ahead. I mean, we've been making albums. We've been controlling our manufacturing from day one, and that's in the book. You know, one of the things that I recall, and I have to give credit because it's in the book, I give credit to Minister Louis Farrakhan, because he did a tape when I was in college called, it was at Jack the Rapper, which was a major convention. It was called Where Is Your Head At? All right, and he came in there saying that you could control your own marketing, distribution if we had the right mindset. So being in college at the time, that was like, wow, this is what I've been waiting to hear. Like, you know, outlining blueprint, sort of like ways to approach it, because I already had a lot just from my pops. So that's number one. That's my foundation. And then to hear someone speak to it in that angle, it just gave me just like another just way to look at it, because Curtis Mayfield had already proven it to us in publishing, right? And then, first of all, Willie Dixon preceded Curtis Mayfield. So they showed us how to own our own publishing, right? And run our own record company. So we knew that already. Barry Gordy was doing it. No, it was not new. But in contemporary time, though, you know, we had yet to have too many people speak about that. And that's what's critical. When you hear records by Public Enemy and Rakim, and they quote Minister Farrakhan, they taking it off that Jack the Rapper lecture. A lot of people don't know that. So when he's speaking about this, a lot of people in the industry was hearing that at the time, but how they acted on it was a totally different discussion. So here we come right on that, in that continuum, if you will, that discussion, that cultural continuum, and we just picked up the ball. We hit Chi-Town in 95, 96 based on real just trade information and facts, because he was like, you know, you gotta, if you're gonna do it, you gotta learn the music industry. Like you gotta be able to go get deep in the knowledge and learn how to do what you need to do, which is what Al Bell said in a book called California Soul. He talks about the same thing, learning from A to Z. So again, you know, these are like mirrors of one another, but it's important that people get that in the book, that you know, underground, if you want to call it that, edutainment, neo soul, which is a new general term put on there by Kadar Massenberg. It wasn't like something that just came from the hip. Right. It's based on real data. It's real, if you will, resources that people are going after. Right. So when we can raise our discussion to a more mature level, then we can begin to prepare ourselves in a more mature and methodical manner, in a serious business trade way, to get the results we're looking for. And that's another thing that we just got to put in the book. It's the first time that we really put that kind of information out like that. So yeah, it's critical.
That's a very powerful book, man. Very powerful.
Well, I mean, what's even more powerful than the book, or along supplementing the book, is that we real time still living it and building on it. So we had to give. So the next book that's coming out with that is called The B-Boy Billions, because again, the trade has just shifted again, literally this year. So we were like, man, there's no way we can drop this book and not at least put a supplement book with it, so people can see what we need to be in the next 10 years. Because it'd be too late if I wait 10 years and tell you then. It'd be too late.
Let's tease them. You just said it just shifted again this year.
It did.
Let's tease them on what caused that shift.
It wasn't so much that it caused. You got to remember, hip hop has always been in spoken word and even R&B. But again, in being in the trade, we know this. We know that Clive Davis created the blueprint for the black music divisions at all the record companies, because he was heading CBS. He went and hired his former school, Harvard School of Business, and created a study on the black music market. This is not a secret. See, in the trade, we know this already, right? So when you know that, you kind of already realize that the economic power of black music. We weren't snoozing on that. We knew this. So when you fast forward it, maybe 15, 20 years as culture recycles itself, especially if you want to call it, you know, Afrocentrism or whatever term we give it, right? It repeats itself every 15 or so years. So as we come into that cycle again, you get hip hop and you get sort of what they call a conscious or the golden era of hip hop, right? So, but what they have to realize in 89, 90, when they was in the Latin Quarter, KRS-One and them met and discussed these matters. But KRS-One admits that they left this and everybody went their separate ways. So it wasn't that we didn't know, right? So here we come in that generation. We part of that generation. Yes, many of us we're not choosing to walk away from it. We run into the fight. And that's the true spirit of a b-boy. If you're a true b-boy, we never run away from a challenge. Like, you know, y'all trying to prod me tonight. Y'all tapping in my b-boy spirit. I can't just sit down, right? I'm like, they calling me on the square. I got to get up, right? But that's the spirit of b-boys. So that's the books, the B-Boy Billions. So we're challenged right now by Forbes, Goldman Sachs, by the presidents, Fred Davis, which is Clive Davis' son, who's doing the same thing his father did in the 70s. So he got the blueprint from his father. So he comes out, he studies the music, he tells the industry executives, we're gonna jumpstart and reinvigorate the music industry. We're gonna go to the free capital markets and get billions. You gotta understand that. Billions. They're not going to get millions. They're not talking about going platinum. They want to get billions of dollars out of a $66 trillion industry. That's what capital is. It's 66 trillion. And they said they're going to do it on the back. And these are literal words. Go to the February issue of Forbes magazine. They say they're going to do it on the back of hip hop and R&B with black consumers in the streaming revenue. They say them exact words. So again, I mean, it's real though. So here we have a rare opportunity with our generation, with all of our boss enthusiasm and all of our, we want to own our own, right?
Exactly.
So the youth are fired up. We've got a generation that want to own their own. They serious, right? So you got to equip them, right, with the right roadmap, at least indicators on the roadmap, so they can begin to, whatever they need to do, revise it or get in position so that they could be in on that, and we all could be in on this $1 billion reality that our industry has. Well, that is on our front, our back, our sides, like literally. So in '99, it's not new, because in '99, the Time magazine did a cover with Lauryn Hill, and they said Hip Hop Nation. They had admitted that the entire nation was under the influence of hip hop.
Wow.
Yeah, so this wasn't nothing new, right? So that's the point we're making. Like, the reason they starting to admit it now is because, again, Forbes, for two things happened. The United States government did what's called a compulsory fee that they're making the technology companies pay for every time they reproduce a stream or whatever to use artist music. So this is the first time in history that they have ever put a fixed income, a continual income on an intellectual property in the music business. And when you do that, now investors have a fixed basis for raising capital. It's the first time. So with them knowing that reality, they begin to bundle the copyrights of the artists and bundle them like you do credit cards or you do home mortgages, and you bundle them into stocks, and then you get an underwriter and you go over to the free capital markets in Asia or Europe or wherever they are in the globe, right? India, Korea, wherever, and you go raise your billions of dollars. So 2 years ago, you had the major companies, not just the record companies, but the tech companies, the Spotify's, the Apples, Pandora's, whoever. They all got together and they went over to the Asian markets and other markets and began to raise that money, right? So then they come back, and like being with Warner Brother Records, and we were trying to get people to understand, like, they just changed their logo. It's literally a hip hop tag now. It's not what it used to be with the big shield. So it's in plain sight. There's no, we're thinking about going to do this. It's done. Right? So this is the reality. So while there's still a window for us, those of us who choose to take the B-boy spirit and run at it, like B-boys and B-girls. We're going hard or go home. That's what we do now. We go ham, right? So those of us who accept that challenge, this is what we're doing. Our goal is clear. It ain't no gray area. You own your publishing. You own meaning as a company, you own your industry and commerce, and you go to the free markets in our true skin, our true being, and just get what we earn and what we do, period. And you got the time to do it. So that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
That's a lot in itself.
That's just what it is.
I just wanted the intro.
That is the intro. That's the intro and outro. That's the alpha and omega. And this is what's important about this generation, which is why it was important for me to present that to the people. Because as we go out here, spoken word, we can use that as an example, right? I'm blessed, man. I love Kelly Rich from Some Like It Black, Africa West Bookstore, Africa West Bookstore. We have so many Jazz and Java Oasis. In the book, you see, I point that out and show them we weren't just at those events just reading spoken word, bro. We literally had a company. We were reporting the sound scan. We were literally bringing commerce and trade. Bro, it's real. When we started the whole radio thing, Renaissance Rhythms was because of the article the Newsweek magazine put out in 94, 95. They said the rebirth of the cool, the black bohemian flexes its funk, the bohemian fringes start to bloom. That's the headline. And they went and highlighted the 5 major markets where Afrocentrism was at a height, and they had spoken word venues, right? And out of that, you get Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Jill Scott, India.Arie. They all come out of these scenes. At that time, John Singleton was there. Tyra Betts was there. Dre left Suge Knight and broke up Death Row and went to start Aftermath. He was there. This is all in the article. So when you understand that, I come into Chicago, the blueprint, the map had already kind of been introduced.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And it started developing.
But it's real, but there was a lot of other people that developed it too. There was Mario, that was from the Lit X, which they talked about in the magazine, him and Tina Howell.
Okay.
You know, there was Kelly Rich with Something Like It Black in the Chinatown Loft, and then she opened up a real venue on the avenue in the city. She's still in existence 25, 30 years later, literally in the history book. So this is real. Like, you know, she's still there. You had Jimmy Lee Tillman and her mother, Alderwoman Dorothy Tillman, opened a spoken word cafe, right? So we had real entities like that throughout the city of Chicago, 7 days a week. But we weren't there on just pure artistry alone. We were coupling it with the industry that they were developing. That's critical. That's in the book.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if this the part we have to bring the awareness to, and it's partly because that's our duty, that's our responsibility. So if I stand before the people, knowing that there was more, knowing that we've been blessed because of that foundation, yet not give them a roadmap and a pathway out, man, that's just a little falling short, if you will. You get what I mean?
It is. It definitely is.
So that's the book. You know what I'm just saying? That's stay in the groove book. Because you have to stay in the groove. Okay. Right? But only to do that, you have to be aware of the groove, how to stay in it.
Yeah.
Fact. And then that way you can eat. There ain't no problem. We don't advocate starving artists ever. Never. We had chapbooks, we had CDs, we had product, we was moving through the scene. We controlled our own masters, publishing. This is real. So that became the foundation when it came time for Warner Chappell. Because I was 10 years in the game by way of the spoken word scene. I had trade credibility.
Wow.
Yeah, I had 2 CDs out in the trade.
Yeah.
Working the scenes, the coffee house. They were selling them in the bookstores and the coffee houses. And we was reporting it. So that's what we're talking about. So, but if people don't know that, right? Again, this is what we did.
It's all in the book.
No, it is. There's a lot in the book.
It's a lot in the book.
For those who seek it, if you really want to know and you want to grow in it and really be successful and get some tips, we put it out there. We just say, look, man, it's up to you what you do with it, but it's out now.
Yeah, it's some strong material that's in that book. And I didn't want you to get too much into it, but I can't
possibly. I'm still sketching it.
You're
too deep.
I mean, it's a lot of information.
Bro, it's intended to be that way.
Yeah, it's a lot of information.
It's intended to be that way. It's a reference manual.
Which is great. Yeah. Which is great.
It is. We even talk about licensing. Let me throw that out there. We show people that it was a real, you go to City Hall, you register your company, we put that in the book. So we show them from day one how that went down. Yeah. Right? We showed them 1996, October 15th, 1996. Getting a legal notice. You get what I'm saying? It's in the book. Yeah. Right? So ain't no confusion what we're talking about as you go through the book. You know what I mean?
This is what we're talking about here.
Now that's a different journey, but that's still on the foundation of what we did through the spoken word scene, because when we were commissioned by the sister I was telling you about, her name was Ife McWhorter. That's her name. Okay. She was the director of the South Shore Community Center at the time, which was one of the largest city-backed park and recreational facilities, right? She brought us in there after she saw us on a panel with a music education technical institute conference, because we were making the music conference circuits at the time, having the only neo soul poetry international show on digital radio at the time, and then Def Poetry Jam. So we're making the circuit rounds, giving people the information. Wow. After she saw us at her venue, she invited us to do 3 shows at her facility. And that's when we came in and was able to highlight. We took an excerpt from this book that's in the exhibit. It's a 120-some-year-old scrapbook from original teachers of the Slater schools, which were the first black schools in America. So you have these first schools from the early 1900s, late 1800s. These teachers had chronicled their blueprint and their education plans in this this scrapbook. So we took out of that book the Paul Laurence Dunbar original poetry, and we highlighted it in an exhibit called Our Evolution of Poetry. It was a 2-3 day event in Chicago. Literally, and people was coming like a museum exhibit you walk through. Yeah. They would do that, then they would go to the poetry event. And that was how that happened.
That's dope.
And that's the website, mind you. Our Evolution of Poetry became Def Poetry Jam Radio. That was literally the website. Because we had 2 sites. They built us a static one and a what's called a 3D one or animated one today. But that's what it was.
that's a lot of growth and a lot of experience.
No, that's real though. But I'm telling you, that's on the shoulders of the conscious.
Yeah.
This is what people got to understand. This was the conscious community.
Yeah, actually doing the work.
Right. And so if we under the impression that we don't have enough value to evolve commercially and economically, it's a misdirection. It's not true. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of what the whole project, both of these projects come from out of that vein. It's important to keep that vein together. Because when we released the book and they brought us before all the scholars in Tennessee, maybe 2-3 years ago, they kept it together. It wasn't a separation. So you see, what's the brother who does the roots and tracing your roots? The doctor, the scholar be on television, the PBS show.
Yeah, the police got him at his front.
Yeah, Gates, Dr. Henry Louis
yeah.
Gates. This is why you got to see the connection. This is when they started going to get Nas, P. Diddy, etc., because we had already brought that bridge in at the international conference when they brought us in with the book and the exhibit.
Okay.
And then we went, H2O is the educational wing of the hip hop community in New York, where we filmed a documentary, again, out of the spoken word scene. Bruce George left Def Poetry Jam, and he got with Louis Ray Rivera and created the Bandana Republic, which was all of the, what they call street organizations and activist groups around the world. It's a poetry anthology. And so we created a documentary called Leaders 1 and 2, Gangs, Guerrillas, Gods, or Hip Hop Terrorists. And it was highlighted in New York at the theater, which is the H2O organization in New York. And with the brother who wrote Panther Baby, Jamal Joseph.
Okay.
And that was a Jamal Joseph move. He was on the panel, he was on the commission and the committee or whatever, and he helped kind of polish it up a little bit to get it accepted and brought into the film industry. And that's real. Yeah. But that's spoken word.
Yeah.
That's the poetry. Me also, bro, that came right out of that vein.
Wow.
Right out of that vein. And that's in the book. So we showed them those films, as well as a reality show called Love for the Mic, which is in the book.
Okay.
Which we went around to all the poetry venues, and we had the who's who of like the poets and emerging poets at that time. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah,
that's real. That's a real project.
Yeah.
Not make believe.
Yeah. That's powerful, bro. That's powerful.
No,
that's
that's
very
blessings.
powerful
It's blessings. It's blessings. Real. Yeah.
I mean, but this type of information is the reason we developing this podcast, because you won't get this information from anybody.
Well, this is what we did. This is what we did when they came out with the poetry anthology, and they had Louis Ray Rivera and Bruce George was on the radio, and they did the same thing, and they had us call in. We was giving, bits and pieces at that time, but again, we was in a different era. See, now we're in the era where we have grown up. Now we have to accept growing up now. We can't talk baby language no more, goo goo gaga to the people. That's played out. We got young people here that see $70 million being generated by Jay-Z in terms of music, not to mention the other things he do to make $1 billion that they talk about now in Forbes magazine, right? We're seeing Diddy generate hundreds of millions of dollars in success stories, right? Master P, Percy Miller coming out doing
movies.
Before the films, he's the one who brought the multi-marketing blueprint to the hip-hop industry. Had a full pressing and distribution deal, only one in hip-hop.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by misdirection. If you don't, without having that information, we walk around here as if it didn't exist. And ignoring it is just as bad as not acknowledging it.
Yeah.
So, these are people who was in Dr. Dre. Everything they did on the West Coast with Eazy-E, etc., these were blueprints at the time, right? That gave us pieces of the puzzle. Where we grown up now.
Yeah.
And so the fact of the matter is, it's now going from 30 billion to 130 plus billion in the next 10 years. You got to be ready to handle that kind of responsibility. Right? So in the book, we show them in the book, it's 6 revenue streams in the industry, but most people have never seen a real royalty statement that shows the 6 revenue streams. They're only looking at 2 today, if that. From CD Baby or TuneCore, whoever they're going through. You lucky if you see the streaming revenue and maybe performance revenue. You don't know nothing about the other 4 revenues that you guaranteed to get.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I was showing the guy. I took a picture of and showed the guy at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I showed him because he's a rapper.
Fact.
And I was showing him that. It's like, well, it's too much information out here.
It is.
For you not to be able to know what to do, what your next steps need to be.
Yeah. But what's another thing that happens is without the examples to see we can do it, then we're under the impression that we cannot do it, and that's even more harmful than just not having the information, because now you don't feel a need to be inspired. Why even try it? Because we don't have success examples to follow, right? Everybody just make a video, go do they don't even want to do the big festivals. Really, that ain't the big thing. The big thing is just to run to small venues, get $5,000-$10,000 check, and get your kudos, and you feel like you're successful. You just go do that tour circuit. That's been the standard for a while. So you have a case of just simply not reaching, not because we can't. We literally have I almost would call it a self-imposed ceiling, literally, and we just celebrating it like this is dope. This is the new substandard is the new standard. We on that now.
20 people listening to your music. We
on that now. Like the poet did the ignorant rapper tonight. I mean, that was hilarious. Like it's just
the conversation we had after the Juneteenth. With the brother going to New York.
Right. Say no more. Right. So that's real though. Right. That's why we had to stop right there and say. Now duty calls the masters to step up, or those who are aware, because when the masters call upon, he must answer. You can't sit back like that. You got to answer. That's a perfect example. Some of us are blessed by way of our ancestors and our peers in front of us who set a stage for us to respond, because they responded for us. So I can't talk about success without mentioning Kelly Rich or Something Like It Black. It's not possible, because that was the venue that the first chapbook was put in her venue. She kept her word. She did that. Wow. She expanded her venue to a commercial location. And then she let us all come in. Painters, poets, writers, whatever. You could put your merchandise in her facility. She did that, right? That's our platform, though. We stood on that. So again, when we did the radio show, we went before the people and said, hey, we got an opportunity to do a radio show. We're thinking about calling it Renaissance Rhythms, and the whole crowd, when the room went crazy, we said, that's going to be the name because the people want that. The success, the rest is history. But that was at Something Like It Black. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm getting you to understand. We was like buying $100 membership cards on purpose and bringing 2, 3, 4 people through the facility because it was real to us. We didn't have nowhere else to go. If we didn't go there, we'd lose our mind in Chi-Town. They called it Chirac now. It was crazy then, but I'm saying that was our haven. Not just for art, for even commercial growth. We grew on springboard and jumped off that.
So Chicago has a lot of history to it that we're not being exposed to.
Of course, that's what the book is for, to help people understand it. It's kind of like, yes, it's great, but when you look at Def Poetry Jam, for example, there's a season, I think it's season 3. Most of them poets on there are from Chicago. Period. Kanye West, Common, and many more Triple Black. We can go down Tara Betts, go down the list. Nikki's on there. There's a ton of poets on there that come from Chicago. It's a reason for that. Because again, when they came, they didn't have no tapings yet. And Bruce George showed me the demo thing that they was pitching to HBO. Wasn't even on the air yet. So we knew who the actors were and who were the real poets. Right? So you got to get the real poets to come to. And I don't say the actors weren't real poets, but the actors had to come and give it a polish because they're going to be on TV. So that's business. You kind of get what I mean? So that's what we're talking about. These were things we were privy to that the public wasn't privy to. And so when the way it impacted the public and then the way it impacted those of us who knew what was going on, it was just different. So we're behind the scenes going, okay, what's the next industrial move? Because now we're getting this attention. And we remember people telling us, and I put that in a book, people saying we're going to wait and see what Russell do with it instead of us jumping in and helping build industry. This is real, bro. This ain't just, and look, bro, or just to even create the value so that it could look, bro. In 1996 to 98, we did the market research between all of the people at that time, Badu, Jill Scott, Common. The Source magazine did an article January 1996 called "The Power and Players," the first edition of that, "Power and Players of Hip Hop." They took a sound scan report and hit the 7 regions and said, where the money's at for hip hop. That was the name of the center article. It was 2 pages. They highlighted people like Nas, Tribe Called Quest, Outkast, Fugees, Lauryn Hill, Goody Mob. These were their examples. And they were showing you the dollar values they made in each region for hip hop in 1996. See what I'm saying? That's a part of our business plan. We got all that data. So we knew there was 11 million units, which break out to about $500 million in revenue generated from just those examples. Savion Glover, Ben R. Reed. We had everything from the shows on Broadway to the tap dance to the R&B to the hip hop. It was generating $250,000 at that time in 1996 to 1998. fact.
Powerful.
You understand what I'm saying? So we knew this. So it wasn't like we walked into a meeting, whether it was Sony or EMI in California or anybody not equipped with the awareness of our value. That's what's in the book. We're trying to get people to grasp that concept. Like, we knew we had value. We wasn't going in there with our head pie in the sky dreaming about what our value was.
Okay.
You understand? And that was the key to seizing those opportunities. And to this day, the key to seizing those opportunities. Even with this event, we bring a speech now. You're not talking about anybody. You're talking about a cat that had 2 Grammys, 30 years, successful tours around the globe. Matter of fact, I can share the blessing with the people. I was going to tell you this earlier. Before I came here, on the way here, went to an event in Spartanburg. Again, I was working in radio from 2009 to about 2012, 13 in Greenville. All right. Talking about FM, major radio. Okay. We getting 50 or 100,000 people every 5 minutes. Okay. I see the guy he's running a new cluster of stations now. He's a program director, about 5, and one of them is Earth 103 FM or something like that. Craig Debo, shout out to Craig Debo. Craig is like, yo, what you got going on? He's like, the Mo Amper Commander, because that's how my radio handle. And here was the Mo Amper Commander.
Okay.
So in Chi-Town, it was the Mo Amper Commander, but it was the Red Admiral Dead I'm at War. That was my pen name.
Okay.
So people knew me by that handle. Coming into the Carolinas, became the Mo Amper Commander from the production handle, right? Okay. So that's how that came to be. So he introduced that to the public. What's going on? We tell them speeches coming to town. They go, wait, you mean Tennessee speech for Arrested Development? And I'm like, yeah, I'm everyday people.
Yeah.
So you understand, that's what I mean by the impact, the commercial impact of artists who they might say is contest or whatever, entertainment, right? So you heard me mention that to the people tonight, but in 1994, 95, Newsweek did an article on the trend, and they called him, they said he was, they slandered like, well, the people see him as being, you know, goofy or something. They don't really take him serious. He don't have no cred on the street. See how the article got slanted? That's real. That ain't make believe.
To that gangster rap.
Just overstanding, but it was beyond. It was bigger than that. It was like, and this is where we got to be careful. It's where we really have to be careful and clear on grasping our own value, because even though they said that, it doesn't take away from the fact that these people were selling millions of units, selling out thousands of arenas, right? A slant is a slant.
He was able to cross over.
But he had support of his community. That's the thing, like with the Fugees. They even did one about the Fugees at that time. But they still slanted on the Fugees. This is the part that this our responsibility to help people get this. So the same thing when they went to 97, 98. They said, oh, yeah, it's getting popular. Badu is a force, because she's selling millions of units of records at this time, but she was on her first album. But they said, yeah, she's a force, but this whole neo-soul thing is a blip on the radar. That's how they characterized it. Now, I just told you they made $250 million off this blip. But they call it a blip.
Because they're looking at pop.
Nah, they look, bro. The value is what I'm saying. We the ones got to be clear, right? We got to be careful. Exactly. We got to be careful when we just look at what others people's valuation is of what we do. This is where we got to be careful. It ain't like hip hop got to $1 billion industry because they say, yeah, this hip hop thing is cool. You know, that's not what happened, bro. Hip hop fought for every inch that it grind commercially. Period. And when I just gave it to them, right? Luke and them had to go through being branded as put the stickers on them and had to go to Supreme Court, right? Easy and them had to get the court, had FBI on them. See, we forget these lessons, you get what I mean? But not all of us. Some of us remember this.
I was just taking my daughter through it the other day.
Yeah, this is fact. So when you see this in the book, what we're giving people a glimpse at is an inside trade track that otherwise you more likely I won't say you won't hear, but it'd be very rare if you hear anybody talking about that side.
No, they won't.
Nah, because I can tell you about Griff. When Griff, we went to California, it's a perfect example. Griff was with a beer doing. This is the height of the spoken word scene. He did an album with a beer doing the Last Poets, and I think he had Chuck on there, and EMI released it under a label called The Right Stuff, which is like a mail order kind of label, but somehow they got convinced by his team that they could move this product. We go to California, right, to meet with the executive of EMI. I think his name was Craig Mack or something at the time. He was over the overall urban music or something like that. But then he had another guy, Tom Cartwright, was over the Right Stuff label with Griff. Now, mind you, we had already went through the terrain like you always do before you go anywhere. You scout out the terrain, right? Ignorance of the terrain is no excuse. Sun Tzu principle, Art of War for Managers and principle. That's right, you got the book right there. We live in that principle. So we hit the terrain and we find out nobody knows about the album. We go into the meeting and we tell Tom, I say, Tom, it's simple, man. You put me in this meeting. I just want to let you know we done already hit the scenes. Magic Johnson Theaters, the Brave New World at the time, which is out in Leimert Park. We hit the Starbucks one, which Bridget Gray was hosting. She was for a deaf poet. So we're in the city now. We're going to the spots.
Okay.
We say, nobody knows anything about your album. He puts his hands down. He say, you know what? This album been sitting on my desk for 2 weeks. We ain't really been able to do nothing. We don't know what to do with it. We thinking about putting it on BET and MTV or whatever. Now, mind you, we didn't follow BET at that time. The spoken word scene was anti-BET like it's nobody business. Nobody wants to find out nothing at that time. That's why even to this day you'll hear Chuck D call it a whole different thing. You know, being thugs or whatever he calls it now, right? He got a little acronym for it. That was the spirit of the spoken word scene during that time. Okay? And then I called Griff and said, Griff, we just met with the head guy of the label. And I can't wait to see if he even remembers this moment. He said, we're going to bring you to Salam Restaurant in Chicago. Because we had just, that's how can I forget that? That's how we got the radio show, because we had hosted 3 successful events at Salam Restaurant.
Oh.
So we were there.
Okay.
And that's what led to the radio show, because the people who ran the college station was like, we want you to bring this neo soul vibe over the airwaves. We looking for this to show the young people this is real. That's how we got the radio gig.
Wow.
And that's how we knew about World Space, because the Final Call newspaper had a headline about the Harlem Renaissance, and they had a center article about Noah Samara launching digital satellite radio in Africa. First time the world even had the technology. So that's how we knew it existed, and they were looking for spoken word content. So we made a demo reel based on the radio show, sent it out to him. That's in the book.
Yeah.
Right. And then he responds. And so again, he's the director says, yo, this is dope. You got the Last Poets, you got Gil Scott, love these people, and you got the new artists on there. We're gonna check out your CD. Had a CD out, I was gonna tell you, it's all in the book.
Yeah.
Let me call you whatever we want you to do this radio show on our whole channel, on our network. Fact. See how the movement, see how the community, see how everybody was tied into that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. So when we come back fast forward and Griffin's like, we're gonna bring him through Salam, we already had a community, a network of people that was supporting us industry-wise, etc.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what happened. It's right before 9/11. Then 9/11 get done. Killed the industry for about almost 2 years. Just getting back, the country had to get back into place. Yeah. That's fact. That's history.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's real roadmap.
That's a lot of history.
No, that's that, and it's trade knowledge. It's literally happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of layers.
Yes, I wish, and that's one thing I wish I had at the time. I don't know if we had it or it was around when the book was being assembled. But I really wish I might have spoken to it, but I'm not sure I had that. I don't know if it was the Last Asiatic Disciple. No, that wasn't it. He had another title for that CD, and that I wish I would have included that in there in that part. So people could have known that, just that, because that was real critical. People didn't even know the album was out. And you talking about a superstar label, talking about Public Enemy in them.
Yeah.
That's real talk.
Well, I'd like to go further.
Yeah.
We gotta wrap it up.
That's cool. Wrap it up. They got the book, Stay in the Groove.
Yeah, Stay in the Groove.
Yeah. One Person Rule for Success. Amazon. All of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So it's Love at Our Roots. All of it's online, bro.
Okay,
we got trade. You can do it.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Go get it. Go get it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, J Commander.
Yeah.
Apple J Commander.
Yeah, whichever one you prefer. I've been called worse.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Live from Sankofa.
Man, bro, thank you.
Sage.
Thank you, man. Y'all stay in the spirit. This is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
No
Gotta
doubt.
be, bro.
No doubt.
Peace, bro.
Peace, bro.